I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. On Thursday, the Democratic Women's Caucus held a press briefing decrying the potential overturning of Roe v. Wade. Speakers, including Senator Amy Klobuchar and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, blasted the potential end of federal abortion rights. The issue of abortion has roiled Washington since the draft decision was controversially leaked and revealed the possible 5-4 overthrow of the landmark 1973 case. Republicans have largely celebrated the news, but Democrats claim the end of Roe v. Wade would be a fundamental rollback of women's rights in the U.S. Let's listen in to the Democratic Women's Caucus.
Been months of work on both houses of Congress and both sides of the aisle, and we are proud to announce today that our nation's capital will feature statues of the first two women to serve on the United States Court, and that is Sandra Day O'Connor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I'm going to say more about this in a minute, but introduce everyone who is here. But I first want to introduce the Speaker of the House. We are so pleased that Speaker Pelosi is here and that she helped, along with Congresswoman Frankel and along with my colleagues, Senator Sinema, Murkowski, and Collins, to get this done. But it is truly an honor to introduce to you the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Amy, for calling us together this afternoon. I salute you and the other senators. Senator Sinema is maybe still with us here, but she was here to begin with and getting us launched. And with my colleague from the House, Congresswoman Frankel from Florida. She was relentless and persistent and demanding, and she had a ready audience and other members of Congress. Let me say why I'm so excited about this. Of course, because of the greatness of these two women. Imagine being the first woman on the Supreme Court after all the years, the history of our country, and to say it's one thing to be first but not to be last, in that spirit of Sandra Day O'Connor. Of course, we in California take special pride in the Stanford connection and the rest, but and then the notorious RBG, really to have her in the Congress as well. When I became Speaker and even just leader, one of our goals in our caucus and working in a bipartisan way was to have more diversity in the Congress. How could it be that this great country got to the place where it is was all those white men who were in the Capitol? So we had Rosa Parks, who helped us plan her statue before she left us. She said, I want to be sitting down. Sojourner Truth, she was not with us when we planned hers. So many other people of color and women in the Capitol. But this is something that people know very well, have seen in their lifetimes, these two women be so courageous, so confident in what they brought to the table. So it's an honor to be here with you, Congresswoman Klobuchar, as chair of the Rules Committee, so important in making this happen. And as I say, anytime you want to get something done in the House, just ask Lois Frankel. She will make sure that it happens. It's an honor to be here with Scott O'Connor, the son of Madam Justice, as well as his wife Joni, and Professor Kelsey Corcoran, who was a clerk to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You'll hear from them. But I want you to know how excited the members of Congress are, the pride that we take, and the lesson it will be for all young girls and others who walk through the Capitol to see the recognition, well-deserved and appropriate for these two great leaders of our country, for our country's history, making a difference for our country's future. With that, I'm pleased to yield back. Oh, I don't know what the timing is. Do we? I know it's going to be you, Klobuchar, but do we have a design? Do we have a sculpture? Do we have whatever it is? I'm sure you'll have it all taken care of. So the sooner, the better. And with great appreciation to Chair of the Rules Committee of the Senate, Amy Klobuchar. Once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And again, thank you to Congresswoman Frankel, and thank you to Senator Sinema, who was here earlier, Senator Murkowski and Collins. The four of us sponsored this bill in the U.S. Senate. Also, Congresswoman Dean is here, I know, the co-chair of the Bipartisan Women's Caucus, and I also wanted to recognize Congresswoman Lofgren, who I don't think is with us, but is the chair of the House Administration Committee that helped make this possible as well. As the speaker mentioned, Scott O'Connor is here. I had so much fun calling Scott to tell him that we got this done. I don't think people ever believe sometimes we actually pass bills, but we do. And I think he was pretty surprised, as well as his wife, Joni, and then also Professor Kelsey Corcoran, who's here, who is at Georgetown Law and was a former clerk for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Kelsey is going to be sharing a message from their family. As the speaker mentioned, the Capitol is our most recognizable symbol of democracy, a place where people all over the country go to visit. I was just with a school group today, their eyes wide open as they see our beautiful Capitol. And the issue is that right now it is full of statues that depict so many Americans that, yes, helped shape our republic, but those fortunate enough to spend time in the Capitol quickly notice it's a whole bunch of guys. In fact, of more than 200 statues in the Capitol, only 14 feature women. That's right, 200 statues in the Capitol, only 14 feature women. When I once brought up the similar numbers of senators in the Capitol on the Trevor Noah show, Madam Speaker, he said, if a nightclub had those numbers, they'd shut it down. But we are not shutting the Capitol down. We are opening it up by adding to the numbers for women. We plan on adding more people of color as well to the Capitol, and the Speaker mentioned some of this under her guidance has already occurred. But this is a special day for two families and for honoring two incredible women. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg were two leaders who opened the doors for so many women in this country at a time when so many insisted on keeping them shut. Sandra Day O'Connor rose from an Arizona cattle ranch to the highest court in the land. Even after graduating in the top 10th percentile of her law school class at Stanford, she struggled to find work as an attorney, period, stop, as an attorney in the 1950s. But she persevered. She took an unpaid job as a deputy county attorney in California just to prove herself. And through the rest of her career, she did that over and over again. She was later appointed to the County Superior Court in Arizona and then the Arizona State Court of Appeals before making history as the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court. When she left the court in 2006, after serving for 25 years, her commitment to our nation never wavered. I saw her when she came and testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee about civics. She founded a nonprofit dedicated to civic education. As I told Scott, I saw her in Arizona once when I did an event with Gabby Giffords. She shared her love of our democracy with the next generation. We're also, of course, honored to join the clerk of Justice Ginsburg and her family, who I've also talked to many of times remotely here, to honor her, the notorious RBG. Not everyone gets a viral nickname in their 80s, but she did. She entered her law school class at Harvard as one of 9 women and ultimately graduated from Columbia, first in her class. Despite her intellect credentials and glowing recommendations, she was rejected for a Supreme Court clerkship because she was a woman. Little did that justice know, who rejected her, that Ruth Ginsburg would one day walk through the same halls as the justice herself, because in 1993 she was confirmed to the United States Supreme Court. As we all know, she never gave up and never stopped advocating for the advancement of women. When you look at her opinions, it's clear she wasn't just writing for today, she was writing for the future. As a rabbi said at the beautiful memorial that Speaker Pelosi helped organize in the Capitol, Justice Ginsburg's dissents never read like cries of defeat. They were blueprints for the future. We like to say that about some of the bills that were waiting around in the U.S. Senate. This legislation is about more than refreshing the artwork in the Capitol. Let us make that clear. It's about making sure that when anyone walks through the halls of Congress, they know that women have a place in our country's history and thus in our country's future. Thank you so much. And I would now like to recognize our colleague, Lois Frankel, and then we will hear from Scott O'Connor, Kelsey Cochran. Thank you very much. Lois.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thank you for your good work, Madam Speaker. Always a pleasure. I saw one of my colleagues here, but I think she disappeared. Anyway, thank you for being here, Professor and Scott. I think I just want to stress what the Senator said of what more than a dozen of the hundreds of busts and statues on the Capitol grounds, only 14 are women. It's pretty shocking, isn't it? So that's one of the reasons I'm very excited to be here today. But I want to tell you a personal story. When I was a young law student in the early 1970s, back then there weren't very many students who looked like me. There were hardly any women law professors. In fact, only 4% of the students in the law school were female. And this was a time before women could get credit cards. There were no laws requiring equal pay or equal opportunities in school. So, Madam Speaker, you won't be surprised, but I organized the women of my class, the few of us that were in the class, to go hear a lecture from this superstar law professor we heard about, who was at Rutgers Law School. We piled in a van. We took a 2.5-hour ride to Camden, and it was a ride that changed my life. We got to the classroom and we saw this tiny young woman who with a very quiet voice, who then proceeded to mesmerize us, telling us about how the law treated men and women differently. And we left Camden that day on a new mission. It was ready to fight for equal justice for men and for women. And little did I know that just about 20 years later, that young law professor would become the second female justice of the Supreme Court, and that 50 years later, I, the young law student, would be standing here, a member of Congress, with the privilege of honoring that professor, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and her very outstanding colleague, Sandra Day O'Connor, both who faced incredible adversity and made remarkable and historic achievements. And I am very proud that future generations, that millions of visitors, especially children from all over the world, are going to come through the Capitol. They're going to see the statues of these women and hopefully want to learn more about them. I thank everybody who was involved. I can't wait, in fact, to bring my 2 little grandsons by one day and say, hey, you see, girls can do it too. Thank you. And I yield back.
Excellent, Lois. Scott.
I am Scott O'Connor. I'm the eldest of 3 sons of Sandra Day O'Connor and John O'Connor. I'm here today with my wife, Joni, of 39 years now, who is the primary care coordinator for Mom in her dementia. It's a blessing because she has not been depressed throughout this. She's in very good spirits and happy to see close friends and family for visits. So I'm happy to share that with you. The O'Connor family extends its thanks to Senator Klobuchar, Congresswoman Frankel, and Speaker Pelosi for introducing and championing the legislation. We thank the President for signing the bill. We're delighted that Mom is sharing the honor with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, her colleague, and her family. I know that if my dad were here standing alongside Marty Ginsburg, the two of them would be patting each other on the back and beaming with pride. They loved their wives. One second, please. Mom and Justice Ginsburg worked together in friendship and mutual respect, even when they found themselves on opposite sides of cases before the court. They're role models for how government leaders should work together to solve our nation's problems. Perhaps as the statue project takes shape, the two of them might be cast to stand together. I mentioned that to the Chief Justice earlier today when we got a surprise audience with him, and it didn't take him long to come back with the following response. He says, "I'm not sure that would be entirely fair. Your mother towered over Ruth, and how would they get the sizing right for that?" So I'll leave that up to the architect of the Capitol to figure out.
Find a way.
Find a way. Mom's elevation from a rural upbringing and relative obscurity to her role in high office proves America's promise. How was it that Ronald Reagan found her and chose her as his nominee? Myself, as a young man recently graduated from college, to me, the fact that our system worked in finding her was just stunning to me. And I had great faith in our system after Mom's appointment that could be possible. She lived a life of public service as a state attorney, a legislator, and a judge. While on the Supreme Court, she traveled to all 50 states and countless foreign countries around the world, fulfilling speaking requests and advocating for the rule of law. In retirement, Mom recognized a national deficit in civics knowledge. Amazingly, in her 80s, she built iCivics.org, a web-based platform which now teaches civics to over 9 million students each year. There are over 140,000 middle school teachers that have passwords for the program because they use it in their classrooms. The program is free, it's nonpartisan, and it's funded through private donations. It's just amazing that happened as yet another career for this wonderful woman. Our hope is that the statues of these two heroines will be placed with their stories as role models for our fellow citizens. Thank you.
So I'm first going to read a statement from the Justice's granddaughter, Clara, who was unable to attend today. Our family is deeply honored to help mark the grand occasion of the announcement of statues in honor of our grandmother and mother, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and of her dear friend and colleague, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. The decision to memorialize them in the Capitol's statutory is significant. There are more than 200 statues in the Capitol, and yet only 14 women are depicted. This bipartisan legislation will begin to fix this imbalance. We are especially pleased that the legislation also specifically calls for reaching out to and considering artists from underrepresented demographic groups. My grandmother and Justice Sandra Day O'Connor were trailblazers long before their respective nominations to the Supreme Court, opening doors for women at a time when so many insisted on keeping them closed. It is also expressly appropriate that they be honored together in recognition of their great friendship and mutual esteem. When they served as alone women on the court, they sometimes found that male lawyers tended to confuse them, even though they looked nothing alike. We trust that the statues will not need to reproduce the T-shirts their clerks gave them one year. I'm Ruth, she's Sandra. I'm Sandra, she's Ruth. The Capitol is our most recognizable system of democracy, a place where people from across our country have their voices represented and heard. It is only fitting that we honor their remarkable lives in service to our country here. And now my own remarks. I started my clerkship with Justice Ginsburg in July 2013. It was just a few days after the Supreme Court had gutted the Voting Rights Act in Shelby County v. Holder. The justice had dissented, as she often did. Hubris is a fit word for today's demolition of the Voting Rights Act, she wrote. The court's disregard for the act's continuing importance was like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you are not getting wet. She had been writing like that for decades, eloquently, forcefully, and sometimes scathingly dismantling the myths that allow injustice to fester. But this time her words hit a louder chord. Within hours, she was trending on social media. There was a meme with a portrait of her, and it had the chalk-like drawing of a crown on her head, and it said, "You can't spell truth without Ruth." I've always loved that meme because I think it sums up her legacy so well, telling the truth. When the justice began her career over half a century ago as an advocate for gender equality, she understood that the ways that our system of law privilege the perspectives of the powerful, and she took it upon herself to name and correct the distortions that result from that imbalance. So as an advocate, she taught the justices, all male at the time, that the stories the law tells about who belongs where, about who is capable of what, aren't always true. Men can be good caretakers. Women can be primary income earners. And in telling that truth, she changed the law to reflect the lived experiences of the people it had ignored. And that was also her life's work during her 4 decades as a judge and a justice. Her dissent said to the majority and to all of us, the court's decision in this case does not tell the whole story. Look over here at who's being left out. Women subjected to discriminatory pay, Black Americans excluded from voting, factory workers who aren't effectively able to organize. She used her voice to bring marginalized people into the story of our legal system. And when she didn't succeed, she held on to what she described as the dissenter's hope, that shedding light on injustice today will help eradicate it tomorrow, or what Senator Klobuchar described as a blueprint for the future. I am deeply grateful to the Speaker, to Senator Klobuchar and Representative Frankel for their leadership in enacting this legislation to honor Justice Ginsburg and her dear friend and fellow truth teller, Justice O'Connor. I hope their statues will inspire visitors and lawmakers alike to trailblaze, to name out loud the injustices embedded in our legal system, and to take meaningful steps to eliminate them, and when necessary, to dissent with all the hope we can muster.
Thank you very much. Very good. Okay. Any questions? I know the Speaker has an event coming up. Any questions on this topic?
Yes.
And a funeral.
My question is for both of you. Obviously, the Supreme Court has come into pretty intense focus in recent days over this alleged draft decision that's come out. I'm wondering if you might speak to how you think Justice Ginsburg or Justice O'Connor would be reacting to these decisions.
Yeah. You guys, I think.
Through the chief.
Okay. I think that they probably aren't going to comment on that right now because this is about the legends that they were. So,
I think
right.
if they were on the court, this wouldn't be the draft.
Lois was very direct. All right. I think we all know our views on it. So, yeah.
Senator, is there any chance that they would be placed in the rotunda? Because I understand that statues have to be removed to do this fight.
Well, I certainly will make the case for that. I think Senator Durbin and I have discussed that. He assisted me with this bill, and I think that would be a great location, but that is not determined. That'll be the architect of the Capitol. As you know, we have problems with these statues, but I have a feeling they're going to be so popular that they better be in a prominent place so many people can see them. Those are my views, and my guess is that is what will happen. So we'll figure it out. There's plenty of statues that can be moved around. My favorite is a statue that Senator Blunt had, the bust of a man he uses as an example, the unknown cleric. Somehow the guy was important enough to have a bust at some point, but then no one can figure out who he is. And so he uses a statue to make the case that what matters is no one's going to remember who you are, except for these two, by the way, and Speaker Pelosi, 200 years from now, but they'll remember what you do. Which is so key of what's happening right now, Speaker Pelosi.
Justice Taney of Maryland, where I'm from, and I take great pride in Maryland, but not in Justice Taney, his statue could go. And we already passed that in the House. We
And
already
there's-
passed that. I don't know.
Right, and there's a movement to add Thurgood Marshall and Harriet Tubman and many other statues. So.
Where is Roger Taney's statue?
He's outside of the old Supreme Court.
The old Supreme Court, that chamber down there. Yeah,
It's a bust.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I went down there and I thought we got to put this statue is going to go in somewhere else than the basement. I want these guys upstairs.
Yeah, we want a better place, but nonetheless, if you're counting, that's one we could get rid of right away.
Yeah.
As I say, it passed the House a long time ago.
Yes, and we're working to get it done in the Senate. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that reminder. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Thank you so much, and we're so grateful that. Okay, one last question.
What kind of timeline are you looking at going from the bill to actually getting a statute?
Of course. So the legislation calls for the statues to be commissioned within 2 years after the bill's enactment. And, of course, we don't know what this, thank you, Madam Speaker, we don't know what the statues will look like, but the legislation ensures that the joint committees of Congress on the library will consider artists from a variety of backgrounds. And as I noted, actually the legislation calls, I should have done my reading, for these statues to be placed in a prominent location. That to me means no to the basement. Yes. So anyway, so that's the timing. Artists submit proposals, and from there we go forward. So we would like to get this done as soon as possible, and funds have already been set aside. So, okay. We're pretty excited about it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Of course. Oh my, yeah.